So, while I was kind of cruising through Netflix last night, I noticed that they have, of course, a lot of anime. They're basically becoming like the second major home outside of the likes of Crunchyroll, Retro Crush, Funimation, you name it. Basically, they're becoming the second major home of anime. There's no disputing that. And I noticed that one of the titles they had, and obviously reports had come out that they were going to get these titles outside of Amazon, was Neo Genesis Evangelion, or Evangelion, if you will. Neon Genesis Evangelion, Evangelion, if you will. And I saw this and I thought to myself, out of curiosity, I was wondering, would they have the one that kind of introduced me to Evangelion? Would they, have that one film? And surprisingly, much to my surprise, that is, they did. And that was the movie The End of Evangelion. And I thought to myself, okay, let's see if this is exactly what it is. And it was. It was exactly the same movie and everything. A lot more clearer, obviously HD remastered and all that. But yes, it was the Neon Genesis 1997 anime, The End of Evangelion, if you will. The End of Evangelion. And curiosity, of course, got the best of me. So I figured, okay, let's see if Anime Abandoned, hosted by Bennett the Sage, has an episode on it. And it did. It was one of his earlier episodes from about 8-9 years ago. Or so on, around that time. And this is, of course, when he was working for Channel Awesome, and there was another person working for Channel Awesome that made an appearance in there. Can't think of his name right now. And basically, Bennett, gave his in-character and probably legit, opinion on the film itself. He gave his legit, in-character, like I said, he gave his in-character opinion and potentially legit, out-of-character opinion of the film itself. Because basically, when you get down to it about the end of Evangelion, if you will, it is basically, mostly the climax, if you will, which is, 30 minutes, as he puts it, and it is. I even timed it myself on Netflix. It is 30 minutes of, well, as Bennett put it, of just pure animation madness. He just said animation, but yeah, it is just, pure animation madness. It is basically the equivalent of, true mind fuckery. And excuse my language for saying that, Lord. But that's basically what it is. It is the true definition of mind fuckery in an anime based, obviously, on a video game series. Yes, because Sega did help distribute it. So based on a video game series and based on a manga, and even of the same name and stuff. But yeah, this is the true definition of mind fuckery, of mind scurrility, if you will, because when you look at all the all the other Evangelion, Neon Genesis Evangelion movies, when you look at them, you don't, true, you're going to see a little bit of weirdness in them, a little bit of mind scurrility, but you don't see as much as you do here. Mostly you don't see it with a character like Rei. That's R-E-I. You don't see it. You don't see it with her, as far as I know. But from what I can understand and stuff, you don't see it with her. You don't see it, with her in any other future incarnations. Whether it's you cannot redo, part 1, whether it's you cannot redo 3.33, or any other, or even a series, for that matter. You don't see any of that kind of weirdness, as much. Here in this 1997 film, it was like basically, in my opinion, because I think this may have been the beginning animation-wise, even though it's based on a game series and a manga to an extent. I don't think they knew exactly where they wanted to go with it. I really don't. I don't think they had any clue where they wanted to go with this story, where they wanted to go, with the characters involved and everything, despite the fact that it's based on something that already has a story in some ways, with Sega being behind it. And this is at a time, believe it or not, in 1997, when Sega was still in the video game console market, and they had the Saturn, I think already out. They were working on the Dreamcast, so these were places where you could actually see and play Neon Genesis Neon Genesis Evangelion, Evangelion, if you will. Yeah, they had places where you could, play, the games of Evangelion, if you will. They did. But, again, those were on the CD-based platforms. That's what they were. But, again, this is something that, because of Sega, through its video game distribution of, I guess, the games based on it, through, hold on for a second. Like I said, this is Sega who, through the Saturn and the Dreamcast, either in Japan exclusively or both ways, had a story somewhat already written up for this. And I think, and again, if it is based on a manga, a Shonen Jump manga or not, it's like the material was there. But what we got instead was a movie that basically, at the end of the day, did not make any sense. It didn't. It didn't make any sense, whatsoever. And I don't blame people like Bennett or anybody else that's talked about it for being, just confused. Confused and bewildered, if you will. Confused and bewildered by what they saw. Because, again, as I mentioned, you look at all the other incarnations of Neon Genesis Evangelion, whether it's a series or movies, and you, like I said, you do see some weird mind screwality, involved, but not as much as this. And it doesn't involve a character that would go on to be a very popular character. In the Rei character, R-E-I. It doesn't involve, someone like that. Instead, it could involve, a different character, someone that's not a main player and stuff. But again, as far as I understand and as far as I can tell, you don't see that there. You really don't. But what's interesting though? What's interesting, as I take care of something right here, I'm trying to unlock my phone. But what's interesting about this, at 10 minutes and 5 seconds, is, as we all know, it's not the only anime based on something to where its movie adaptation, has a mind scurrility, mind fuckery ending to it, despite, its various symbolism. I mean, Evangelion, the end of Evangelion, if you will, did have some symbolism, very religious Christianity, Christian allegory, symbolism all throughout, as pointed out by Bennett and that other guy, I can't think of his name right now. But, they did have that in there. And yeah, maybe it was something that the people behind the movie wanted to get across. They wanted to get across, that this is about, the ending of the beginning and the beginning of the end. They wanted to get that across. And in some weird, screwy way, they kind of did. Or at least they attempted to. But, like I said, you go back to Revolutionary Girl Utena, the movie, based on the manga, the same name, based again on another potential video game franchise, possibly only seen in Japan or very subtly seen outside of it, as well as a manga itself, and an anime based on said manga. When you look at Revolutionary Girl Utena, the movie, yeah, the series and the manga to an extent, and I think even a game or so, has some weird mind scurrility imagery, but they didn't, have it to the point where literally, the main character that the series is based off of turns into a vehicle. I mean, yeah, they had one episode in the Adolescence of Utena series where one of the female characters turned into a cow permanently and all that, and her brother turned into one to join her and be with her. But that was it. That was it. That was the only kind of imagery you had there. I mean, again, like I said, you did have some weird imagery, throughout the series, but not as much as what the movie had, because the movie itself was chock full of mind scurrility, fuckery, imagery, symbolism in, symbolism or not. It was looked at by a lot, even to this day, as mind scurrility, fuckery imagery, because it's like, what is going on here? It's like you have bed linings and bed curtains, bed sheets, if you will, wrapping around one girl like she's a caterpillar, but she's not, but wrapping around her like a cocoon, and thus having her emerge from it as a butterfly or something. It's just, imagery like that, and then other imagery throughout, and then of course, like I say, the ending with Utena becoming a car. It's like all this coming out. It's like, what in the world is going on? Why is this all happening? Right? It doesn't make sense. It has no connection, to what the original series, the manga, and to an extent the games were about. Even if they did have their own, choice, or their own visual choice of screwy imagery and stuff, it wasn't as, catching off guard as what the movie did. And the same can fall into the category of Neon Genesis, the End of Evangelion. The same can fall into that category. And why can the same fall into that category? Well, it's real simple. Because again, would you expect Rey, a character, I don't know how prominent she was in the games or even the manga, probably had to be prominent or something, but would you expect her to allow herself to be absorbed into this giant, whatever it was, life thing, and thus allow her face to be recreated, her body to be recreated, thus merged with it, and recreated into a giant version of herself, and then have her face plastered and all these other things across the sky and space? And it's like, No, you wouldn't expect that, but yet here it was. Here it was. So, when you get down to it, as I've said before in one video, if there's one thing I can give Japan and potentially other countries around the world when it comes to animation, it's basically when they choose to do so, whether it's based on something or not, when they choose to do so, they sure know how to basically give you some WTF imagery and moments that's going to get you talking even for the longest time. But what are your thoughts, guys? What were your thoughts when you first saw that climactic ending, that 30 minutes of mind screwality fuckery, in the End of Evangelion? And how do you think it compares and stands side by side with what we saw at the end of Revolutionary Go Utena, the movie? Let me know down below in the comments, or in the live chat during the premiere. Like the video, guys. I'm about home. Super chat, super stickers are open during the live chat, and super thanks afterwards. But again, guys, give me your thoughts. And until next time, I am home now. And as I try to unlock my phone here, and I will talk to you all later. Peace out.